Welcome to New Jersey Outdoors. Today we're going to take you on a canoe trip. You know, New Jersey has terrific canoeing. You can canoe on the whitewater of the Delaware River. You can canoe on the lakes and ponds of northern New Jersey, on the beaver ponds in South Jersey, or you can come down here to the Pine Barrens like this and make a trip right down through the heart of the Jersey pines. Thousands of people enjoy canoeing the pines every year, and it isn't necessary to own your own canoe. The Pinelands are dotted with canoe rental facilities. Many groups and organizations enjoy canoeing the Cedar Water by driving to a rental agency and then riding together with their canoes to a good launching point. This way they can spend the day canoeing and end up at the spot where they left their cars, or the rental agencies will meet them and return them to their cars. Individual families can also enjoy canoeing by renting a canoe and getting out on the water on a sunny afternoon. When the kids are out of school, it's a great way to get good exercise, enjoy the open air, and be together. Sometimes canoeists have a definite trip in mind. Sometimes they simply return to their starting point. Sometimes it's difficult to tell what they have in mind. However, it's important to learn to canoe properly. And today we have with us Sheila Link, who is an expert in teaching people to canoe. She's an expert canoeist, and she's going to take Melinda Weldon, who is a novice canoer, and teach her a little bit about canoeing. So let's join Melinda and Sheila Link and learn how to canoe properly and enjoy the pines of South Jersey.
There you go.
Hey, Sheila. Why do we have so many paddles?
Well, you and I haven't canoed together before, and I wanted to be sure I had one that would fit you comfortably.
Okay.
You know, you spend all day paddling, and you want to have a paddle that's comfortable for you.
All right.
The paddles have changed an awful lot in the last few years. It used to be that the long paddle was almost de rigueur. The way they did it was that a stern paddler would measure it by being up to his eyes when he stood up, and the bow paddler would have it up to his chin. Then somebody came along with the bright idea that it would be better not to have to reach so high every time they took a stroke, so now most of the paddles are about armpit height.
Okay.
And while you might prefer a wooden paddle, and you're welcome to use this one, I think you might find one of these a little bit more comfortable.
All right.
It's going to come about to your armpit.
Seems about the right height.
It's got a nice wide blade to it, so it'll give a lot of push. You want to give that one a try?
Sure.
If you don't like it, you can use the other. We always carry an extra paddle, so we'll have this with us.
Good.
You want to
put this in the bow?
Yeah, stick that up in the bow, and we'll get underway here in a minute. And I'll let our friends here take this extra paddle. There you go, Pete. You're welcome. You brought extra clothes.
Yep.
And that's really important.
Okay.
Let's face it, you can get wet canoeing. And
all right.
It's a good idea to have a complete change so that if you get wet, you can get into something warm and be comfortable. And it's good to have it in a watertight container, but it's a good idea, too, to put that container in something a little stronger than that fragile plastic. So next time, maybe you'll want to take a duffel bag or something like that and put your clothes into it. We're going to launch the canoe. We're going to do what we call a parallel launch. We're going to launch it parallel to the shore.
All right.
That way we'll both get in together. Okay?
And load up now?
No, we'll load up after we get the canoe in the water. This way you don't drag a heavily laden canoe over the ground. It's very hard on the canoe to do that.
All right.
So we'll get launched and then we'll go.
Okay.
Is this a
fiberglass canoe?
No, this is an ABS plastic. You know, years ago, practically all the canoes were aluminum. Well, years ago, they were mostly birch bark, but then they got into aluminum, and they were very popular. They were a wonderful canoe because they were so strong. They were a real workhorse. But then they discovered that fiberglass had other attractions. It was prettier, it was more quiet, and also because it was smoother. Many of the aluminum canoes had external rivets. The fiberglass is so smooth that it goes through the water more swiftly and easily. And they use fiberglass.
How about for weight?
Fiberglass is heavier, no question about it. But it has the advantage of riverside repair. If you smash into a rock, you can make a quick repair. This is plastic. This is neither one. And this is the material that's really taking about 80% of the market now. And the reason is that it has built-in flotation, and it is plastic with a memory. If you get a dent in it, all you have to do is leave it in the sun for a few hours and it'll come back to shape.
Great.
I kid you not.
Great.
Okay, that's not too heavy, is it?
No, this is amazingly light.
All right, we'll get it right down here by the water, and then we'll load it up.
All right.
Have you done much canoeing, Melinda?
Not really.
You haven't?
Not really, no.
Well, I'm going to show you a couple of strokes and how to do them so that we'll be working together on this.
All right. Do I need
I think of canoeing sort of like ballroom dancing. In that, well, it sounds funny, but I'll tell you why. You're mirroring one another's actions. You know, the canoe is a long, stiff item, and if the front of it is going to move to the right, the rear of it has to move to the left. Generally, you want to paddle on opposite sides. If you're on the right with your paddle, I'll be on the left with mine. And we stay on the same side. You shouldn't have to be changing sides in order to steer.
All right.
So if you can understand the principle of a few of the basic strokes, then you can go ahead and manage on either side, and you'll change sides only so that you can get your muscles sore on both sides. Okay, the main stroke for the bow partner is the forward power stroke. And if you can think of a line down the center of the boat where a keel would be, that's the direction you want your stroke to take. You don't want to curve with the gunnel, because then you're wasting energy. So reach straight out in front of you and draw it straight back.
Okay, now this, you had this hand up here. This is down here.
This hand should be right like that. That's why this grip is like this. And the reason I like a T-grip is that it gives you better control.
Okay.
Okay? And then the power face of the blade, the part that's moving the water, you bring straight back. As you pass your hips and take that blade out of the water, we do what we call feather the paddle. You turn it slightly this way by cocking your wrist.
Okay.
And that way you don't drag water up with the blade. You bring it back and like this, all right?
All right.
When you change to the other side, you do it exactly the same way. You reach straight out, you get behind you and feather the blade like this and bring it nice and parallel. Then to turn the canoe, you need a couple of strokes. You need what we call a draw. Are you a swimmer?
Yes.
Okay, then your paddle is like an extension of your hand. If you want to, you're in the water and you want to move that way, you reach out and grab.
All right.
And that's what a draw stroke is. You reach straight out and bring it back.
Okay.
What you don't want to do is when you bring that paddle back, you don't want to let it get under the canoe. So as you come back like this, you turn it into the forward stroke position. That's right. Okay. And then turn it, and then lift it, and then you reach out. And you can reach way out. You can lean way over. And use your upper hand, as much as your lower hand. In other words, when you're paddling, push forward. Don't try to let the lower hand do all the work. The same thing on a draw. Push out like this as you pull. Supposing you're paddling on the right-hand side and you want to go to the left rather than the right.
Okay.
You don't want to reach over like this. It takes a lot of time and it's going to throw your partner in the stern off. So what you do is a pry. You pry away.
Okay.
You drop the blade down like this, use the gunnel, the top edge of the canoe as a fulcrum, and just push. And you push yourself away.
Okay.
So if we're making a turn and I say pry or draw, because I'll see which side you're on, you're either going to give me a draw stroke to help me turn short, or you're going to pry away to help me turn this way.
Great. All right.
And the mirroring is that I'll be doing it in the opposite direction.
All right.
Okay?
Okay, so the stroke that you'll be using in the back is very similar to
The stroke that I'm using in the back is exactly the same except for one difference.
Okay.
The stern partner has the job of being candidly in charge.
Okay.
He's responsible, or she, for calling the shots.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the steering is up to the stern partner.
Okay, so there'll be a lot of verbal communication. You'll be...
Oh yeah.
All right.
I'll be yelling stroke at you and all that.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, what the stern paddler has to do is bring the paddle back like this into the power stroke,
Mm-hmm.
and then turn his paddle into a rudder, in effect.
Oh, okay.
The old style was use a J stroke. You bring it back here, and then you turn it into a J, as if you're drawing a J.
Okay.
That's very hard on your wrists. And a newer style that's coming into popularity that I prefer, because it's easy, is a Canadian stroke, or call it what you will. It gets the same effect. You bring it back like this, and you turn it this way. And then you use the canoe as a fulcrum and push it.
Uh-huh.
And the reason this is necessary is that the canoe is always going to draw or yaw a little bit to the side that the bow paddler is paddling on. So the stern paddler always has to make a slight correction to keep in a nice straight line.
All right.
All right?
Sounds great.
Now, if you've noticed, I brought a shock cord here.
Uh-huh.
I don't like to put heavy gear in a canoe and lash it down, because if you do that and you do have a tip, what happens is that you've got a terribly heavy canoe, and it's very hard to right it or get it out of the water. But if you can get your stuff out easily, then you can get the canoe righted. I don't like to tie all the gear in a canoe real tight if you've got a lot of heavy stuff, because if you do tip over or ship a lot of water, it's just too hard to get the stuff out and the canoe around. Okay, what we're going to do is, this is a parallel launch, and you want to remember always, when you stand or moving around in a canoe, is to keep your feet right in the very center.
All right.
Okay? So we're going to step in with one foot right in the center and put one hand on each gunnel and step off and push off, okay?
Okay.
Let's do it. It'll look like the Rockettes.
All right.
Okay? Whoa.
You know, with instructions like Sheila just gave us, it's pretty hard to go wrong when you're canoeing down any kind of waterway. It's very, very important to know how to canoe properly, just like it is to know how to ski properly or play golf properly. And I think Sheila is an expert canoeist, and I'm sure that the little bit of instruction we just picked up is going to help us a lot. You know, talking about canoes, I think if I had one boat, it would probably be the canoe. You can use it for fishing, you can use it for hunting. It's a great family boat. You can carry it on top of your car. The fiberglass, the aluminum canoes are practically maintenance-free. It's really just a great boat to have. And as far as being dangerous, it's a shame that canoes have been given their reputation as tipping over very easily. They don't. If you handle a canoe properly and stay on the right type of water, there's very little chance of turning a canoe over. And if you do turn it over, it's really easy to right, and you can be on your way in a matter of minutes. I think the way Sheila told us to tie things down and make sure things are stowed properly has a lot to do with the safety of a canoe. Now, New Jersey has excellent canoeing from the Delaware River and the northern New Jersey lakes right down here into the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey. The Wharton Tract alone, which is the Wharton State Forest, comprises over 100,000 acres, and it has several very, very nice canoe streams. In fact, I've been told several times by people who have canoed all over the world that New Jersey probably has some of the best canoeing in any place you'll find it, anywhere. The streams aren't wild. They're streams that a family can go down. Yet, on the Delaware River at flood time, you can have some real fast whitewater canoeing. Now, there's several major rivers in South Jersey that are good canoeing. The Cedar Creek up in Ocean County is a 2-hour canoe trip from Double Trouble right on down to Route 9. It's a magnificently beautiful little trip. It's very easy for a family to do this trip in 2, maybe even 3 hours at the most. Then you have rivers like the Wading River and the Mullica River and the Oswego River, the Atsayan, all down the Wharton Track, which offer a real canoe challenge. You can canoe from 3 hours to, say, maybe 8 or 10 hours on the Wading River. You can canoe up from the where they start at a beaver dam right on down into the tidal water at the town of Wading River where the wild rice grows. Another good canoeing river is down in the Maurice River, down above Union Lake. This is a real difficult river to canoe because of the blowdowns. Streams are pretty well covered with logs, and you have to get out of the canoe and carry them over. But it's a great way to go, and it's good exercise. I think the best time to canoe, really, in my opinion, is the fall. The weather in September and October and even early November is nice and warm in South Jersey. The water's still warm, and the bugs are gone, of course. And it's nice to get out and watch the foliage change, and you see all kinds of wildlife. You'll see on these Cedar Water rivers, you'll see beaver, and you'll see muskrats. You'll almost certainly see deer. There's a lot of bird life along the edge, so it pays to bring a pair of binoculars along. Once in a while, you might be lucky and you'll see an otter. Now, in the summertime, it's a little different situation. These are extremely popular canoeing rivers, and on a busy weekend, it's almost one canoe after another. But it is a recreation that thousands and thousands of people enjoy. And of course, there are many canoe rental agencies along the rivers and in southern New Jersey. There's a list available from the State Department of Environmental Protection and the Parks and Forests, and you can rent a canoe by the day. They'll deliver the canoe to the starting point, and of course, pick it up for you at the end of your journey if you like. Or of course, you can bring your own canoe and have 2 cars and drop the canoes off at the starting point and leave 1 car at the final point. Now, one thing you have to watch out for when you're canoeing anywhere is logs in the river that overhang or that are just under the surface. Here's where you have most of your trouble. If you get swept along with the current, you can have an accident by having a sharp branch run into a sharp branch and possibly upset you or even hurt you. So you have to watch out, watch your eyes. You're moving along with a lot of force. Of course, the underwater logs, you very seldom see them until you come right up on them, and they can cause the canoe to broach or cross current, and it can flip you. But again, by knowing how to canoe properly, how to handle the paddles, the different strokes, you can avoid 90% of the obstacles, both along the edges and also under the water. One of the nice things about canoeing in South Jersey in the fall and the early spring is the fact that you do have the rivers almost to yourself. You might see an occasional canoeist, but many days you can canoe these areas, especially during the week, and never see another party, which is really great. Here we are within a 2-hour drive of the Philadelphia, Camden, and New York metropolitan area, and you're canoeing along, not seeing another person. You would hardly know it's New Jersey when you get down into the Pine Barrens. One thing about the Pine Barrens, there's a diversity of habitat. You'll have the cedar swamps where the white cedar grows, which used to be the main material for building boats, the old sailing boats of yesteryear. You have the old abandoned cranberry bogs along the edge, the meadows. Then, of course, you have the pitch pine and scrub oak woodlands. All of these constitute the Pine Barrens, and the diversity of habitat is what makes them so attractive. And one of the interesting things you'll come about in the fall is the cranberry bogs, which have overflowed and planted the cranberries right along the edges of the canoe trails. And you can stop if you like, and after a frost, the cranberries will ripen up very fast and become very red, very tart. And you can actually stop and you can pick a bucket of cranberries and take them home. You can make cranberry jelly or cranberry sauce from them. They're really a good source of food. They're perfectly clean. They're available. Although once in a while when you try one, you'll find they're just a little bit tart. They make you pucker a little bit, but they're good. They're really good. And a lot of people do go canoeing for the specific purpose of picking cranberries. There are a lot of good recipes for making cranberry jam and cranberry sauce, so it's not a matter of doing it yourself. You can read up on it, but you always want to make sure you pick the red ones and pick the ripe ones. You know, at different times of the year, you get different water levels when you're canoeing. Generally, you'll find that during the early spring, the water level is about 1.5 feet or 2 feet higher than it will be during the summer. So therefore, if you want a good fast trip without a lot of underwater obstacles to fight, you might want to canoe in the springtime. However, in the summer, the water's slow and it's sluggish. And then during the fall rains, the rivers will come back up to near normal again, and you'll have the situation where you can canoe along without having to worry about going aground or hitting too many obstacles. These rivers in South Jersey were used in colonial times for transporting the ore and the lumber down to the sea, where, of course, they were shipped overseas and used for building the boats and making of the iron works. In fact, on some of the rivers you will come across, like the Martha Furnace, where they used to make the cannonballs for the Revolutionary War. And you'll go through some of the forgotten towns of New Jersey that Father Beck spoke about in his book, Forgotten Towns and More Forgotten Towns. You'll visit the old Harrisville paper mill. You'll see the remnants of the old building and the whole town that existed in New Jersey way back in the early 1800s. There's a tremendous history to southern New Jersey, and if you have the time, it would be wise to read up a little bit on books like Forgotten Towns and More Forgotten Towns and learn a little bit about the areas that you'll pass through on your canoe trip. You'll still see at the bottom of the streams the old iron ore, which was used to extract the iron to make the original cannonballs and other ironworks of years ago. Fortunately, the pine lands in New Jersey are pretty well protected now by the state of New Jersey and the Pineland Commission, who are regulating the various uses of the pine lands. While this water right now is wonderful recreation, it is a source of our drinking water probably in the years to come. And one of the purposes of the Pinelands Act is to protect this very, very valuable resource, our drinking water, for the future generations. At the same time, to allow public recreations that are compatible with the use of the pines. So the pine lands, sometimes called pine barrens, which they aren't, are going to be used by all the citizens of New Jersey in a very regulated way to protect them and still provide what we call multiple-use recreation. When you go on a pine barren canoe trip, you might want to take along your fishing rod. There is some pretty good fishing. It's mostly pickerel. The water is very acid in these pineland streams. There aren't really big pickerel way up these headwaters. However, an 18 or 20-inch pickerel is not too uncommon. The best rod would be a spinning rod with like a little Mep spinner or a Daredevil spoon or a Johnson spoon. You'd cast up into the grass edges or up under the overhanging banks. There are some bluegills and possibly some catfish, but the pickerel is your big fish that you will find in the pinelands. People in South Jersey call them pike, but they're actually eastern chain pickerel. As you come down along the rivers, the state of New Jersey has provided campsites where you can canoe for a day, go ashore, set up your tent, and stay overnight. Now, you do need a permit to camp in the streams along the Wharton Track and some of the other areas, so it's well to apply to the regional office of the State Forests and Parks, obtain a permit, get the regulations, and then abide by the regulations. Of course, as you come along the canoeing area, you'll come to numerous places where you can take out and have lunch or camp, if whatever it would be. These are just little sandy beaches where you can beach your canoe. You always want to remember to carry a little more food than you think is necessary, because you can really build up an appetite when you're canoeing. So carry your food in a insulated pack, strapped shut, so if you should flip, you don't lose your lunch. And you can come up and you can pull ashore and relax and spend a few hours just sitting and enjoying the woodlands and thinking about your trip, maybe even planning a trip for next year or next spring or maybe even next week. Canoeing is really a great way to see the Pine Barrens. It's a way to get good exercise. It's a way to enjoy companionship with your people, your friends. And generally, I feel canoeing is really top sport here in New Jersey.
Week after week,